A government that just decides we're switching that off, and now you're all targets of the state, enemies of the state. A government that does that will come for you as well and will say the exact same things about you as well. Remember how this administration came into power claiming that they were prosecuting and going after violent criminals? Why are they doing dragnet searches at warehouses when people are working at work at their place of business? Are those the violent criminals that they are prosecuting, that they're apprehending? They're like, oh yeah, there's a real crisis. There is a real crisis of violent crime in the undocumented migrant communities, and we must prosecute. The Joe Brandon administration is simply not prosecuting these violent criminals, right? That was the argument. And I kept saying over and over again, like, the idea that police and law enforcement and the judicial system would just simply turn around and be like, oh, this guy did a rape, but they're Guatemalan migrant and they're undocumented. Let him go, please. Like, the idea that that was the reality that the Republicans were presenting was so stupid, so insane, that it was the easiest thing to counter message against by simply pointing to by simply asking some basic questions like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, does it? And yet the Democrats didn't do that. And the Republicans basically ran the entire media landscape with these ridiculous claims, these ridiculous assertions. And of course, because these assertions were completely ridiculous and their goal wasn't to actually apprehend violent criminals, their goal was to simply apprehend anyone and everyone that they don't want to give a citizenship status to, that they should give a citizenship status to, people with temporary work visas, people that actually are legally, like with the proper documentation, working on U.S. soil right now inside of sanctuary cities like California. This is one federal overreach of epic magnitude, going into a sanctuary state and going into a sanctuary city where no one in California, people in California yell about the crime all the time, but no one in California talks about undocumented migrants. People in California do not point to undocumented migrants and say, this is insane, we have to do something about it. As a matter of fact, it's one of the greatest examples that I always use all the time. Like, people will make a big fuss about undocumented migrants in Texas, but there's more undocumented migrants in the state of California, and yet no one ever complains about it because it is a part of our communities, okay? Undocumented and documented migrants are a big part of our fucking community. It is a part of the social fabric in Los Angeles. It's a social fabric and a part of the California culture. They are workers that pay taxes. They're just trying to make a living. They're not doing anything to anyone. They're not disrupting anything. Now, the federal government has decided that they're going to do this anyway. And here we are. A tremendous amount of resistance and a tremendous amount of resentment born out of this kind of illegal enforcement, this ridiculous action. Our leadership needs to step in. This is the reason why people vote Democrat, to step in times like this, so that there are sanctuary city protections. Okay? It is ridiculous. It is unacceptable. The fact that Los Angeles Police Department was offering cover for ICE and federal law enforcement to engage in this dragnet operation at a fucking warehouse is completely unacceptable. I can't believe it. Like, this is pure and utter fascism in full display. Make up a fake problem. Undocumented migrants are responsible for crime. And then in the process of fixing the fake problem that you made up, that you really whipped up a frenzy around, you go and you hurt regular ass people, normal ass people. You're just your neighbors. You know what I mean? People that are not causing harm to anybody. While in the process of claiming, while simultaneously claiming that you are doing this because you have to go after criminals. Okay, why are you deporting 4-year-old cancer patients then? Why are you deporting mothers? Why are you going to a warehouse where people are working during the workday to do a dragnet operation and apprehend as many people as you possibly can? Why? Are those the criminals? This is why, obviously, I kept repeating over and over again my disbelief when I heard people who were like, I'm undocumented, but if I had a citizenship, I would vote for Donald Trump. Or my cousin is undocumented, but I voted for Donald Trump. It's like, dude, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? It was never about deporting these violent criminals, because those violent criminals are made up. This doesn't mean that there aren't violent criminals that are undocumented. Of course there are. There are violent criminals in every category. But those people that engage in heinous or violent acts are quickly apprehended and prosecuted. When these guys say the undocumented violent criminals, they're talking about Haitians with temporary protected status, the proper legal documentation to work in Springfield, Ohio. They openly stated that. They were calling them illegal aliens. They're not illegal aliens. They are legally here. Their status is being revoked. They claim that if you are black or brown and you're on U.S. soil, okay, and you're not a naturalized citizen or a natural born U.S. citizen, then they can take away that status. And they want to take away that status erroneously for no real reason. And it's not because they want to combat crime. This in and of itself is a crime. So when people don't recognize that, when people don't understand that, when people delude themselves into thinking that like these kinds of incredible acts of violence that are genuinely a waste of resources, okay? A real waste of fucking resources for no reason whatsoever, with only negative consequences. When people think that these acts are actually for the overall good, they're deluding themselves. They don't understand. I don't know how people turn a blind eye to atrocities that are happening in their backyard against their neighbors, against their loved ones. I to a certain degree, I understand, like when you think about Gaza, when you think about genocide that is being conducted with our tax dollars, right? That's happening over there. So maybe you can turn a blind eye to that. You shouldn't, and that's still unconscionable because there's so much death and destruction. We are morally culpable for that death and destruction. But like, this is literally your neighborhood. You know what I mean? This is happening all around the country. And it's not happening for any good reason other than the fact that the Republicans have successfully dehumanized entire swaths of the American population. Make no mistake, a lot of these dudes that they're apprehending are already either A, waiting for their court date, and they have the legal allowance to be inside of US borders. They are simply waiting for their court date so they can get processed, or have actual fucking visas, temporary work orders. They are allowed to be here. They're allowed to work. It's the administration that magically removes that dial or turns it in the other direction and says, nah, you're illegal now. You're an illegal alien. We have revoked your protection. Do you understand? When someone says illegal alien, there is an image in the back of people's minds, a racist one for the most part. This idea that like some MS-13 tatted up gang member secretly hopped over the border, right? And came in with a bunch of drugs, maybe like kidnapped people, did a bunch of crimes. That's not how it is. The overwhelming majority of these people, the overwhelming majority of people that are considered illegal aliens by the right, are just simply black and brown migrants that are awaiting their fucking court date to receive or have already received their temporary work status. They're just turning that around. They're just basically saying, you don't have this anymore. Or we actually changed the court date deliberately so you couldn't show up, and now you have an immediate removal order on your name. I'm a natural born citizen, but my father was born in El Salvador. When he came here, he became affiliated with MS-13 before I was born. After I was born, he tried for years to gain a citizenship, and towards the end, he had to remove tattoos, nothing related to MS-13. Although he finally received citizenship, it was revoked a year or two ago. I sometimes wonder if his history will affect my citizenship, even though I was born here. That's crazy. That's crazy that even like as a natural born US citizen, you have constitutionally protected rights. Like you are an American. And the very fact that you're like considering this is terrifying, because that's where we're at now. Like there is a real fear of denaturalization now. They want to call it remigration. I mentioned this before, but ICE has been waiting outside the courthouse to detain those who are following orders. Lawyers in Florida also scamming people to go to their appointments. Yeah, here, if you want to understand like how little this has anything to do with criminality, look at this. Trump's masked ICE Gestapo snatches a woman when her lawyer goes to the bathroom, then forcibly carries her into an elevator after she appears to faint. They wait when someone is at an immigration court proceeding. They're in the hallway. ICE comes in, apprehends the person in the hallway when they notice that her lawyer is in the bathroom.
Hold on, let's get her lawyer.
Her lawyer's in the bathroom. That's why they're taking her now. You waited until her lawyer leaves. Seriously, her lawyer's in the bathroom. I'm recording this.
Masked agents, by the way. It's illegal now for you to wear a mask when you're at a protest or just in general, even if you want to mask up for other safety or your own privacy, but also, like, again, for health reasons, right? You don't want to be a super spreader or whatever. That's illegal. But cops, they can wear masks to hide and protect their identities. Interesting. Public servants wearing masks to hide their identities. Why has this become such a common meta, you think? It's become a common meta because they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing is Nazi shit, okay? They know that there is going to be repercussions for this kind of behavior. It shouldn't be illegal for protesters to wear masks. It should be illegal for the cops to wear masks while they're in the process of doing cop shit. What are we doing? We pay these people salaries. What do you mean? They get to just like apprehend people at their court proceedings.
This. Her lawyer's in the bathroom. Hey, Kate, they're taking your client. Kate, they're taking your client. She's fainting, Kate.
Can I go in the bathroom?
She's a female. Yes, you're allowed to go in the bathroom. Dude, she's fainting on the hallway. Wait till get medical.
No.
You can't. You want a medical? You can't transport her.
You need to leave her.
Get medical services. Come on.
No.
Hey, quit. You can't.
This can lead to random ass people pretending to be cops. It already has. A bunch of white supremacists have also been deputized, according to eyewitness testimony so far in other parts of the country. They don't have enough manpower to do this kind of shit to begin with the police force that already exists. Even though the police force that already exists is pretty fucking large, trying to do mass deportations of 20 million people, Gestapo style, like Nazi Germany style, requires an endless amount of support. They have to deputize people or use the military or use the National Guard. That's what the federal government is trying to do.
You can't manhandle her into an elevator. You're manhandling her into an elevator. You're manhandling her into an elevator, dude. Her lawyer's in the bathroom.
Hold on, let's get her lawyer.
Is there someone that knows the legal ramifications of intervening on this? Oh, there is nothing. Like, I mean, you will also go to jail. They'll probably release you, or you'll get obstruction of justice charges. The only way to stop this is with overwhelming numbers. When there are like a lot of people, like too many people, and the cops feel unsafe, I guess, to conduct their activities like this, only then have I ever seen police officers back away. There are images from Minneapolis and even parts of San Diego, or even what you're seeing right now. This kind of mobilization, like mass community mobilization, protecting one another when our institutions won't protect us, is the only way to disrupt these sorts of illegal and unjustifiable, unconscionable acts that the federal government is entertaining and engaging in. And of course, given the way that this administration is actively trying to criminalize speech, I'm certain that even me saying this one day could be presented as illegal, okay? Oh, Hasan is urging people to do something illegal. It's like, no, People have a right to engage in civil disobedience, and there are unjustifiable acts that the state engages in that people have every right to resist against, okay? If you look at our history with chattel slavery and the defense of chattel slavery, if you look at our history with the civil rights struggle, and you understand that brave individuals that found these actions, these legal actions by the state to be unconscionable, and took matters into their own hands and protested against these kinds of actions and disrupted these kinds of illegal and unjustifiable actions, if you find those people to be in the right historically, then you can understand where we're at right now as well. We just did it in Compton. People this morning, people figured out ICE was coming, blocked the entrance to Home Depot. They parked across the street, then tried walking in, couldn't drive off. Yeah. Why is there not more civilian protests against ICE? There are. There are. What do you mean? I participated in one. I was at a rally, a pro-Palestinian rally that marched to the ICE headquarters in D.C. for the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil. And also what you're watching right now here in Los Angeles, this is a spontaneous mobilization, a popular mobilization of the people in the community that find these actions to be unconscionable. The reason why you don't hear about it too much is because the media doesn't cover it as much. I mean, this is like a massive issue, and I think that's the reason why KTLA is covering it, and this will probably make it this kind of mobilization does end up causing the media to cover it, but ultimately this has to happen. This kind of rapid mobilization has to take place, both in the short term to try and stop the federal government from engaging in these violent, heinous actions that are not only invoking Nazi Germany, but also simultaneously are completely unproductive in every aspect. Like this is a inhumane, right? You're ripping people away from their day-to-day existence for no reason other than the fact that you want them out of the country, right? By lying about their background, saying that they're criminals and dehumanizing them in the exact same way that Nazis did with Jews, socialists, communists, and using the same process to basically rip them away from their communities, away from their families, away from their loved ones, away from their place of work, because that's what the Nazis did as well. It was a process of denaturalization. Jews were no longer considered citizens of the state after the race laws. Same with socialists and communists that were also sent to these concentration camps. They were considered no longer individuals of the state. They were actively dehumanized against, and then simultaneously through the legal process, they became non-citizens. And you can do whatever you want to non-citizens in the, at the time. And clearly that's what this administration is trying to do as well. So even the mechanisms of the state are damn near identical. And I do not think that this will stop with just undocumented migrants, especially because most of these people that they are calling illegal aliens are not actually illegal aliens, right? They're not illegal aliens in the way that you think they are. They're not just like devoid of any sort of paperwork whatsoever. They are legally on U.S. soil. It's just the government has the capacity to switch that process off. Okay? That's it. Someone who is legal today can be considered illegal tomorrow. Because, as I always say, and I always stress, the difference between a documented migrant and an undocumented migrant is just documentation, is just paperwork. It's the government saying you're allowed to be here versus you're not allowed to be here. And up until recently, there was at least like a little bit of back and forth in this, and there was a little bit of normalcy around this process where people that came to the United States of America that were seeking asylum, legally, mind you, would have to cross the border. Most of them are legally waiting for their asylum case to be heard. They're still undocumented, but it's not illegal. Exactly. These are not people that just have no interest in like dealing with the paperwork or dealing with law enforcement. These are people who came into the United States, applied for a legal asylum claim, and they are awaiting their court dates. And the government decides, nah, no court date for you. You got to get the fuck out because you're a criminal, rapist, drug dealer, parasite. These people are not. One, they're not criminal, rapist, drug dealer, parasites, because if they were criminal rapists, like the previous government would have prosecuted them, and clearly the administration would not actually entertain the notion of revoking due process, because due process would show that they have just cause to deport these people. So if the government, I ask you once again, if a government can declare your status illegal with no real reason other than made up claims that you are a fucking criminal, and that every single person that came from all different walks of life from all across the planet to the tune of 20 million are now overnight considered non-persons, non-citizens, and must be fucking deported instantly to an El Salvador concentration camp with no due process, why the fuck do you think this won't come for you inevitably? A government that does not entertain the humanity of all people, even those who are waiting in line to become legal asylum seekers, so they are technically legally on U.S. soil awaiting their court date. A government that just decides we're switching that off, and now you're all targets of the state, enemies of the state. A government that does that will come for you as well, and will say the exact same things about you as well, and me. All of us, whoever they decide to do this kind of thing towards. So what you do in this moment matters. What you do in this moment in resistance against these kinds of ridiculous and violent actions of the federal government matter, because this is basically training for when it comes for you, okay? This is community organizing and mass mobilization that will be an absolute necessity. It's an absolute necessity right now, and one day it'll be an absolute necessity to protect you as well and your loved ones as well.